Hey there, today I'm going to be talking about the changes I have made to my Oops All Rapid Fire and Rerolls list since the standard update changes. My name is Nate, and welcome to the Gamers Guild. I've had a few people ask me about how I have approached some of my rosters after the card changes with the standard timeline events. So while I will absolutely be addressing those changes, I have, as most of any of us do, also just continued to tinker with my roster of characters and cards in hopes of finding new synergies and powerful combos, and I dare say that I have. So I'm going to start by going through the characters, then the crisis cards and tactic cards, and be making a note of some of the things that have changed and why. If you're wanting a bit more depth on a character or a tactic card or something like that I seem to breeze over in this video, please check out the previous version of this roster review and I'll probably go over it there a bit more. I'm going to start by mentioning the very obvious character selection since he is the only leader, and that is Shadowlands Daredevil. His leadership that gives rerolls on attacks is kind of what makes this entire roster tick, because there isn't any limiters on the number of attacks that can get this reroll like there is with X-Force. Just that the enemy has to be contesting an objective or holding onto one for the reroll to be viable. And even Daredevil's ninjas get the reroll, so he almost has his very own rapid fire attack to fit in with the crew. So yeah. And speaking of just some of those core members, the core hasn't changed at all. Winter Soldier and Hood still see the table alongside Shadowland Daredevil every single time. They are both exceptional damage dealers with unique abilities that make them just core to the core game plan of what this roster is doing, and they also at least both get to count as affiliated, which is a pretty big deal. But that is only 3 of the roster slots, and the rest are really a game-by-game choice about who else is making it to the table. The only other 4th threat in my team is Medusa. She got hit with the Nerf bat a little bit back during the 1.5 update, but really only just a little bit, and that her extra reroll, not to mention the rerolling of a failure, helps keep her almost as consistent of a damage dealer as she was before anyways. And then the only 2 threat I have is Bullseye. He has the perks of being affiliated, and his spender has rapid fire. All good things, but really he is just another character who can output damage from range, and at 2 threat he fits that role as anyone else can, and you know, he's affiliated, so that works out really nicely. But that leaves 5 open slots for a pretty flexible roster of 3 threats that either have some of their own rerolls or the ability to turn on the rapid fire. The first of my 2 remaining affiliated characters is Kraven. This is a swap up from Sin, who I was already not a huge fan of, but she was affiliated and had rapid fire. After she crumpled a time too many, I started to try out Kraven at some higher threat level games to help keep affiliation, and I have to say I've been pleasantly surprised. He really only will come in at 19 or 20 threat, but being able to add 1 dice to an attack against a specific character gets a bit crazy when most of those characters are really getting 2 to 4 dice from it because of the multiple attacks they can make. Not to mention, if Kraven gets set up for his Kukri Strike and a Spear Thrust combo, he can really lay out some damage himself. In the remaining floor slots, there have been some more shake-ups, with one exception, and that is Mystique. Her kit is pretty nice and works well with Shadowland Daredevil, but the real prize that comes with her is Deception, her team tactic card. Its effect can set up an enemy for death really quickly on turn 1, reel in somebody with a valuable extract, and so on. If you bring Mystique, you bring that card, and that's pretty much all there is to it. The remaining 3 slots have seen some changes, however. In place of Domino, I'm currently testing out Punisher, but I think you could really go with either one of these 2 and not be disappointed. Instead of Baron Zemo, I now have X-23. That is in part because X-23 is a downright murder machine who is scary enough without a second reroll. But, well, here she is. Zemo and 23 are very similar characters, but I think 23's extra lethality outshines Zemo's shared reroll, because 1 4-dice attack sometimes isn't, the extra reroll just isn't really needed, and you can't always have the whole band together to benefit from it. And finally, I have removed Crystal for Black Cat, which breaks the theme of the Oops All Rapid Fire and Rerolls. But I have my reasons. Primarily, she comes in as a single extract specialist. One of the few missions with a 20 threat value is the Kree Core. So instead of bringing in Craven, having Cat be able to steal away the core is extremely valuable. The other reason I am breaking up the theme is because this roster isn't nearly as janky as I first thought it was. I had originally built this roster based on some fun synergies to maximize Shadowland Daredevil's leadership. It just so happens that it was a lot stronger than I had first thought, and so Black Cat adds an answer to some of the shenanigans that can be found out there at the moment. Crystal is being dropped in part because Black Cat is a great utility piece that needed to get fit in, but also in part because the Crisis I really liked Crystal on is no longer in the roster. So, saying that, let's jump into the Crisis cards. My extracts have actually all stayed the same. Researcher, Hammers, and Spider Infected, because 16 is a good point total. Researcher does really nice, as well as forcing people onto the Researcher for the points. If they don't commit to it, they will lose on points pretty quickly, and if they do commit to it, it's just a shooting gallery for your team. This style roster probably takes advantage of hammers more than any other out there. Usually a hammer gives the attacker a 1 or 2 extra dice per turn, and in this roster, the hammers add up to 4 dice over the course of a character's activation. And finally, Spider Infected just has multiple objectives so that you are more likely to have a target to get rerolls on. And I would rather have the Spider Infected over the cubes because I don't like giving power-starved affiliations, like the Web Warriors, more power. And the cubes can be awkward with their potential to daze a character before a round really even begins. As for the secures, they are mostly the same, with me keeping Gamma Shelters and Intrusions, but I am cutting out Demons Downtown. While I like the shape of the objective and really love the Incinerate that it hands out, I have found that my wiser opponents just forgo the middle point and only secure their back point, which is relatively safe. I'm guessing they figured out that the cost of losing a character for a single point isn't really worthwhile for most people, and because I do want people to be standing on points to benefit from the rerolls, you either want to have a plethora, or you want those objectives to be worth multiple points like Gamma or Researcher. And so the replacement I have gone with is Mayor Fisk vows to find the missing witnesses. This brings a point total that I like again at 16. It forces your opponent to play for them or just risk being heavily outscored. And finally, the downside of this crisis doesn't hurt your team nearly as badly as it can others. Don't get me wrong, stun is a rough status condition, but all of the rapid fire characters other than Bucky are only getting a single power on an attack anyways. So the stun isn't quite as bad for a team of rapid fire characters and Daredevil. Finally, we have the biggest of shakeups, and that is the tactic cards, which this roster has lost quite a few of. For the restricted cards, I have Sacrifice and Brace for Impact. Both of these are very defensive and reactive cards that can help protect this team of squishy characters. Diverting an attack into a character that has already activated with Sacrifice can be great, especially if you maybe have Hood in his possessed form, and Brace for Impact is Brace. There's not much more to say there, I feel like. The character-specific cards, we have Mystique's Deception, which I've already talked about, Punisher's Blood Red, and Personal. This card takes some work to pull off, but if you're going into a wider team, it can pretty easily net you 2 victory points as long as you get it off in time. And then because of Zemo's cut, Hood's Gang makes a reappearance to help add an extra layer of rerolls if you feel like you have a dead space for a tactic card, because Hood's going to be seeing the table pretty much as often as anybody else. Then we have the 2 affiliation cards with All According to Plan and Cruelty. Cruelty is one that I am still bringing almost every single time because even though you don't get all of your rerolls and other shenanigans, it's one more attack that is pretty easy to play and can help push through that 1 or 2 damage that you need to daze or KO an important piece. All According to Plan, on the other hand, is really only brought when I have 3 affiliated members, and that can't include Winter Soldier, unfortunately, because he can't help pay that high cost of 10 power. And that leaves just 3 open tactic card slots. And here you will find Follow Me for its universal use, even if it's at a high cost, because this team really doesn't use that much power. Marked for Death, not so much to deal with stealth, because most characters here attack at range 3, but rather to turn off an opponent's defensive rerolls, looking at you, Amazing Spider-Man, and your absolute annoyance. And then finally, Mission Objective to bring for those single extracts that are too valuable to drop. And that wraps up the tactic cards and the roster. As far as any overall game plan goes, this team is all about attrition and killing. And in part because of that, they can also score points pretty easily as well. So apply aggression, throw lots and lots of dice, and yeah, that's pretty much it. This is a pretty easy list to pilot. There are still big decision points, but they are mostly who do you need to kill and who's going to have the best chance of killing them. That wraps up my changes to my Shadowlands Rapid Fire roster. Here at the end of the video, I do want to give the normal shoutouts to the guild sponsors, Tritex Games and War Room Hobbies, both of which are local gaming stores that are hosting game nights, events, tournaments, as well as offering MCP miniatures at a bit of a discount. If you shop from them, use the code TritexGGCP5 at checkout when shopping with Tritex to save an extra 5% off, and then the code MCP2022 will get you an extra 10% off of your order from War Room Hobbies. So if you're considering jumping on maybe the freshly released Heimdall and Scourge, or maybe pre-ordering that sweet new Malekith releasing soon and are shopping online anyways, consider using these stores and discounts to help an LGS. However, if you are already shopping from your LGS, that's awesome. Keep supporting them. We support that decision. But if you're wanting a way to still support the guild's videos or podcasts, check out our Patreon page. You can join for as little as $1 a month, $12 over the course of the year, and it does give you, in addition to, I guess, that warm, fuzzy feeling, access to our Gamer Guild Discord channel. That's just a nice little community. We talk about Marvel Crisis Protocol, some board games, as well as where we go for all of our questions for the podcast. So I will say thank you real quick to all of the members of the Guild Hall who are supporting what we do here. The new project that is coming to fruition next month for the 3rd anniversary of the channel would not have been possible without you. We do also have a monthly giveaway thanks to Tritex. All you need to do to enter is be subscribed to the channel and leave a comment on a video the same month that video was released. As always, if you have enjoyed my thoughts and are new to the channel, hit that subscribe button for a weekly dose of MCP content in the form of reviews, battle reports, tactic talk, and other MCP goodness. As well, you can also find the Gamer Guild podcast on several different podcast apps and platforms, also down in the links in the description. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, keep on gaming.